Shalom, shalom. As always, all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakaha, Kwadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and salutations to the elect scattered throughout the four corners of the earth. Lord willing, this one will be edifying to the elect. And straight to it, man. In this truth, it's very important to constantly be growing, right? Because this truth is all about endurance at the end of the day. But there's no way you're going to endure until the end if you're not growing. You know, you're not going to make it if you're not growing, if you're not improving. So, as you see in the picture, it says 5 spiritual workout tips. And the best spiritual workout tips are in the scriptures, man. You're not going to get any better tips than what's already written in the Holy Bible. Okay? So I'm just going to make some comparisons here because a lot of us, we should be doing some type of workout. We should be taking care of our body. We should be taking care of our physical as much as our spiritual as well. And the comparison I'm going to make is that when you're in the gym and you're lifting, the last reps that you do, or push-ups or whatever it may be, it's usually the most painful ones. But that's usually where the growth happens, right? And similarly, when it comes to the truth, quitting, when things are tough, you don't get any increase, you don't get any growth. There's no improvement. So, staying outside of your comfort zone or getting outside of your comfort zone and doing more and pushing more is always going to be beneficial for you so that you grow, right? Because this is not easy. It's not easy, doing the work, so to speak. But there is times where it is easy because the spirit should be flowing. You should pray for the spirit to be flowing in you because it's the spirit that gives the increase. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yashai, Yahweh Bahasham Yahweh Shai gives the increase, right? And it's all about faith. But when it comes to men, there are different levels of men. Even in the gym, you have men that do more workouts, they have more muscles, right? You have some men that they focus more on stamina. They may have a longer endurance when it comes to going on the treadmill. And then you're going to have other men that stronger when it comes to, lifting weights. So every man has their different, talents, I should say, or strengths. Strength is a more fitting word here. So we all have different strengths, right? And in this truth, it's the same thing. So it's very important for us to exercise and work on the things and in the areas that we're not strong in. So if you're not, you know, that good at lifting weights, or you can't manage a certain amount, you're not going to continuously lift the same weight because there's not going to be any improvement, right? You have to increase the weight, so you have to do something different. So if you run on the treadmill for 30 minutes every day in the gym, you're going to have to increase that as well. Likewise in this truth, man, if you don't read as much or you don't do as much as you should, you got to make a change to that so that you can grow. So and ultimately endure, right? So let me see the first precept here that I have. Okay. And now we can relate this whole thing to diligence, because being diligent in this truth, or striving to do videos and do the work, and just doing your brotherly duties and everything that the Lord deems as righteous, you know, there's a lot of things that are a part of the work, and there's a lot of things that we can improve on. So diligence is one thing, right? Because with diligence, you get results, you get growth, you improve. So let me see if this one here is fitting. I think Second Peter chapter, kind of jotted down a few things here. Second Peter chapter 1, verse 5, and it says, and beside this, giving all diligence, add to your faith virtue, and to virtue knowledge, right? So you need to add to these things, right? And diligence ultimately gives you that addition to your faith, right? And to the knowledge, because when you read more, you gain more knowledge, right? because you're not supposed to stay the same, right? And truth is ultimately about building, different layers of character. And growth is something that needs to be intentional, right? And obviously, in this truth, we rely on the spirit for sure, but at the same time, we do have, some type of ability to to be intentional, right? And ultimately, you just have to pray to the Lord for that type of spirit, an intentional spirit, a spirit where you get things done that need to be done, right? And then similarly, right? When you're in the gym, right? You don't, as I mentioned earlier, you don't lift the same weights forever. So it's very important to add to your faith, add to the knowledge, and diligence ultimately gives you that, right? And I think this one is also a good one here in Proverbs chapter 13. And I'm speaking to myself here first and foremost, right? But the Spirit is just on me to say this because, as I mentioned before, you have different levels of men in this truth. So different men lift different reps, are on a totally different level. And you have some men, even the ones that are not on the same level, there is some areas that you're stronger in. So we all have things that we have to work on, man. But it's all about your attitude and the intention and the sincerity and the spirit, and everything ties together. Diligence gives you growth, and growth helps you to endure. It increases your faith. Diligence increases your faith, and also your the knowledge in this truth. And all of these things come hand in hand. All right. So this is Proverbs chapter 13, verse 14. It says, "The soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing." All right. Again, the soul of the sluggard desireth and hath nothing. Right? So a sluggard is a lazy person. A person just talks shit. They'll say they're gonna do this, or they're probably puffed up around men, or they present themselves a certain way. Whatever it may be. You don't want to be a sluggard, right? And it goes on to say, and have nothing. Because the sluggard is not going to be diligent. The sluggard is not going to have the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. That's not going to be the case, right? Then it goes on to say, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat, right? And what does that mean? When you're diligent, you're going to be consistent, and you should be consistent regardless of how you're feeling. I know many of the elders speak on this, man. You should be doing videos or doing things in this ministry when you really don't feel like doing it. It's not about what the flesh is feeling. All right, it's that intentionality that it's about being what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional. Sorry. Yeah, it's about being intentional, right? So yeah, man. When you're diligent, when you strive to be diligent, because it's something that you can strive to as well, because not all men are on the same level. Not all men show the exact same diligence, but the scriptures said that we should. So on the level that you're at, you need to show the diligence to the level that you're at, right? So in the gym, you train even when you're tired, and you continuously stick to your routine. So in this truth, you want to apply the same thing, right? And the point of this scripture here, it says, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. So you will be increased. You'll grow, right? You'll improve. You'll be consistent. That's what the scripture is saying. And a lot of us, man, I speak first and foremost to myself. I know I've been fucking around, man. I know I've been doing a lot less than I should be doing. And there's no excuse, because all of us have lives that we live and different things that, hinder us from, reaching that full potential that we want to reach. But the Lord has set up men over us that show us that example, And sometimes it's not the person that you may be thinking, you know, or it's not the direction that you're looking in, is that example, because you have many men that are very consistent and diligent. And now the Spirit will have it where you will notice that and you say, well, you want to do that too. So it doesn't matter the level of the man. What I mean by that, it doesn't matter the rank of a particular man or brother, right? We all should be diligent regardless, in striving to grow. Okay. And it does come with a level of mental toughness as well. And Kal Halalim La Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai, and that's to say all praises to Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shai. And Yahweh is who the world ignorantly calls God, and Yahweh Shai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Those are the names that you are to call upon, and those are the names that will bring you salvation, right? You cannot receive salvation without those names. All right, nonetheless, continuing, right? Mental toughness in this truth. As I mentioned before, it's something that we learn or try to obtain or try to apply. And we have this in the body. We have examples of this in the body. Men with mental toughness, and with a level of mental toughness that you would probably want to obtain in this life. And, we all strive for improvement. So it's very important to be mentally tough, right? And now not the first, but the fourth scripture here that I'm going to read, because I didn't expect to read some of these scriptures, but the Spirit wants what the Spirit wants. So this is 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 25, and it says, and every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things, right? And what does that mean? This is a great comparison to working on your physical body and working on your spiritual, which we do that through the truth. When you strive, you work towards something, right? And being temperate is having control, having discipline. All right. So it says, every man that strives for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown. Now you're not supposed to do the work or do any type of work, to get a corruptible crown. You want to keep things spiritual, righteous, correct. You want to always line things up with the law. You want to do things in the right order, right? You want to have, as I mentioned, order. You want to have actual control over your thoughts, your emotions, all of these things. All of these things line up with being temperate, right? So that's watching, pretty much that would be like watching certain things that you consume, whether it be food physically, and also watching the things that you take in on social media, the videos that you're watching, the music. Just be wary, just be cautious, just be circumspect. Likewise, when you're out and about, you don't want to just be going anywhere. You don't want to be just out there. So you got to watch even then and there. But in general, man, you want to be vigilant. You want to be circumspect. You want to have control over your space, through the Spirit and power of Yahweh Hashem Shai. No, it kind of went off in something else. Sometimes, we're all over the place, but it all leads back to the same thing spiritually. There's always edification within things that we don't see. All right, but it's also very important not to, when it comes to striving for the perfection, striving to be like Yahweh Shai, not to wear yourself out, because there's balance, right? All right, there's balance to everything that we do, but it's very important to not be a sluggard, right? And it's very important not to quit, not to be too discouraged, and I myself, as I mentioned, first and foremost, when I do these videos, for the most part, I'm applying it to myself as well, because the spirit is while you're speaking to men, or you're being a watchman, you're being a voice of Yahweh, being one of the voices of Yahweh Shem Shai, you're also speaking to yourself too, right? So let me close here with Galatians chapter 6. I think that's a good one to close with. Or maybe I'll also close in Matthew. It says, which verse? Verse 9. And it says, and let us not be weary in well-doing, right? Not be discouraged. For in due season we shall reap if we faint not, right? So if we endure, the reward will come. If we continue to stick to the script, stick to the routine, and continuously improve, we will not faint and we will be rewarded. So we've got to stay consistent, man. And it's never too late. Well, it can be too late. You don't want to wait until it's too late. You don't want to be calling on the Lord when he's not there to be found. We're still in the reaches of grace, but grace is not something that's unlimited, man. It's not something that doesn't run out, right? So you got to get right. You got to stay consistent in the scriptures, in your mind, in your spirit. You got to meditate on these things consistently, even if you're not getting to everything that you want to get to right now. It's very important to be aware if you're fucking around, if you're slacking off, if you need to do more, right? If you again, if you're in the gym and you're on a certain level, and you start to eat shit, you start to fuck around, and you're gonna. That's not discipline, man. That's not what's the word here I'm looking for? I just read it in the scripture before. That's not what's the word? Bear with me. Right, that's not consistent. The word will come to me, man. But yeah, it's not temperate. That's not controlled. That's the word I'm looking for. Temperate. Okay? So let me just read. This is one of my favorite scriptures in Matthew. Matthew chapter 24, verse 12 or 13. And this is Yahushua speaking, and he says, but he that shall endure unto the end, the same shall be saved. Okay? So enduring in a race, is very important, because if you don't endure the race, you won't finish. Likewise, a workout, man. Most cases you work until failure, but the mindset is to continue working out so that you can get that increase, But the comparison to the race is the best thing, man, because this is a race. And if you don't finish a race in this life, what makes you think the spiritual race that we're enduring? And if you just decide that, I don't need to do this no more. I don't need to go on the highways and the byways anymore. I don't need to do videos anymore. Nah, man, that's not the spirit you should be in. You got to endure. You got to endure in the growth, faith, and knowledge. All right, and understanding. And wisdom flows. Wisdom teaches all. Okay? So I'm going to leave it there. And as always, all praises, honor, and glory goes to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Rukaha, Kwadash, Abad, Babal.